Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dojo Live. Today is Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. I'm Tulio Sergusa, broadcasting from Southern California. Joining me is Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico. Hey Kim, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you.
I just love our new intro music. It just gets me in a really good mood. It's awesome.
It's pretty cool. It's a little loud though for me. I think I had to turn it down and then I had to turn it up. We need
It
to fix
was.
that,
It was
I
like you
think.
were suddenly inside of a club and you're going like this. But anyway, welcome everyone. We have our awesome guest today, who is Tyler Baldwin, CEO at Reali. And we're going to be talking about everything real estate today and technology, and we'll see what we can unpack. But before we do that, let's get to know Tyler a little bit. If you could be so kind to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself. And again, welcome to the show. Welcome to Dojo Live.
Thank you. Great to chat with you, and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Tyler Baldwin. I'm the CEO of Reali, and I've been here at Reali for 3 years. I started my career 20 years ago in management consulting. And I've been in high tech basically for my entire career. I started off with a company called Monitor, and then went to business school, and then joined McKinsey & Company, was consulting Fortune 500 companies on high-tech growth strategy, essentially. And then joined a few companies. I joined LinkedIn early days, right when they went public, and helped launch a couple business lines. I spent some time at Pinterest, and then found my way to Reali 3 years ago. And kind of a career shift, was focused again mostly on high-tech companies, and came into what I would say is a pretty old and antiquated industry, with the goal of trying to transform this industry through technology. And that's obviously something I'd love to talk about today.
Great. Thanks for being with us. So tell us a little bit about Reali. What is the company all about?
Great. So very simply, we are a one-stop shop for homeowners to buy and sell and finance their home. And what that means is we've vertically integrated all elements of the buying and selling process all under one roof. So we have a mortgage bank, a title company, an escrow company, a property buying business, internal marketing, internal lead generation, listing coordination, transaction coordination. Essentially, anything you would need to do to buy, sell, or finance a home is in-house. We also have consumer products that we've built that leverage institutional financing and technology to essentially take the stress out of buying a home. Our mission is to delight the homeowner at every stage of their lives, and our approach is essentially just to streamline the process to make it as simple, affordable, and stress-free for every single consumer who works with Reali.
Okay, let's see what we can learn. Let's go into the topic today. And Kim, if you don't mind, please kick that off.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Tulio, and thank you, Tyler, for being here today. So, Tyler, the topic as chosen by you is building a one-stop shop for real estate. And why? It's because 65% of all buyers have a home to sell at the same time. So how can this process of simultaneously buying and selling a home be simplified into a one-stop shop? So you are, you might on the face of it be a real estate company, but the reality is you're a tech company, right?
Exactly. Tech is the backbone of what we do. It's it's the basis of what we're trying to do. So let me explain a little bit about the consumer problem that we're trying to solve, which will then give insight into how we leverage technology to solve that problem.
Perfect, please.
So as you mentioned, 65% of buyers have a home to sell at the same time. So, I mean, this isn't surprising. Most people are second-time home buyers. And it's important to understand that when people are buying a home, the second-timers, they're selling and financing at the same time. And this process, it's not just one transaction. It's actually 3 transactions. There are literally 215 steps across all 3 of these transactions. A typical consumer will interact with 20 different people from 10 different vendors. So the buying agent, the selling agent, title, mortgage, escrow, home insurance, home warranty, inspections, and I know I'm forgetting a few. But it's literally like this, and that process takes on average 6 months from start to finish. And the challenge is, like, I'm just trying to move. There's some life event that happened. We have a new baby and we need to move. We want a little bit more space, or now we have more kids, or we need a school district, or grandma needs to downsize, whatever the life event is. And I'm just trying to move from point A to point B. But we as an industry have not made it easy, because it's so fragmented across all these different vendors, and the process is kind of opposite of what you want to do. Most people want to move first. They don't want to, and if you were independently wealthy, you just go buy your new house and then you figure out how to sell your old house. But most people can't do that. You need the equity in your existing home to buy the new home. So there's a lot of challenges, and that coupled with, in this market, and it used to be only a California thing where you hear about all these multiple offers, but now that's everywhere. That's in Wyoming, as we were discussing before, or other places where the majority of homes in the United States now are multiple offer. And if you don't have cash, it's hard to win. So what we're trying to do is solve all these problems, leveraging a combination of trusted experts, because it's still an emotional process. Most people still need that advice. They need that therapy. It's an emotional process. They also need financing. How do you actually bridge from one home to the next? And then and just as important, technology. How do you actually leverage technology to make that process seamless? Those 215 steps, how do we automate away half of those steps, or at least make it easy and create visibility throughout that process? So really, that's what our mission is to try to make that process of buying and selling at the same time very, very simple for the average consumer.
So I'm curious, one could argue, just playing devil's advocate here, one could argue, well, that's the realtor's job, right? Isn't that their job to help you through that whole process? So how does this help the consumer? How does it come into the picture? Does it eliminate the need for the realtor? Does it enhance what they do? Can you just maybe paint the picture of what changes for the consumer who's buying and selling a home using this platform?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we're absolutely not trying to eliminate the realtor. There's absolutely a value for this. In some ways, we're trying to superpower the realtor, as well as give them tools that they can never. So for instance, if you were trying to move from Orange County up to Danville, where I am, and you asked your realtor, hey, can you help me? I need to sell my house first. Can I borrow $1.5 million? I'm pretty sure they're not going to say, like, sure, here you go. So part of like what we're providing is like this bridge financing to help do that. But also, like, once you're in the transaction, let's say we could provide that. One of the challenges is even the realtor is experiencing a fragmented experience. They have no idea what is going on with title, with escrow, with the loan officer. So for instance, if you were, you're buying, I'm your realtor, and you come to me and say, we got the offer accepted and we're supposed to close the loan in 3 weeks before you can move in. And you say, hey, what's the status of my loan? And the typical response of an agent, it would be, I don't know. Go talk to your loan officer. Because how do they even know? This is a company. I work for brokerage XYZ, and then the loan officer is whatever. It's a Rocket Mortgage. They have no idea. So for us, this is where technology and the unification of all of these entities come into play. All of our teams are on the same platform. So our loan officer and our agents leverage the same CRM, and our agent could look into and see, okay, hey, where's the status of the loan? Oh, the loan was just locked, or it was just submitted to underwriting, or whatever it is, and here's the next step. And you can tell the client, hey, here's where it is, here's the next thing. And sometimes they're not equipped to actually answer the question because it's very loan specific or escrow specific. They say, okay, now you need to go talk to XYZ person, and let me get them on the phone right now. So the fact that we're all under the same roof, on the same platform, it provides that 360-degree visibility that enables our agents to do things that they could not do if they if everything and wasn't in house. So that's just a massive advantage that we can provide that clarity, that transparency in the process, which is lacking. That's one of the most challenging things about home buying is essentially what happens is the consumer has to serve as the quarterback because they're the ones stitching together, especially, by the way, when you add those three transactions. Usually when you're buying, selling, and financing, the agent, I'm moving from A to Z. It could be a different agent where you're moving to. So like the consumer is having to quarterback the whole process. So that our solution enables us to kind of take that on and provide way better consumer support.
Now, when buying and selling at the same time, I mean, there's two consumers involved, right? There's the person who's selling their home and buying their home, and there's this person incoming to the house that is going to potentially finance the new home. I saw my neighbor recently last year. They sold their home and they weren't out of here for like 4 or 5 months. And I was thinking, why is it taking so long? It took them that long to find a new home. So it was like, wow, the buyer had to wait 5 months after the transaction was completed to be able to move into their new home. So how does that come into play in terms of the transparency? Does it extend to all the people involved or just the customer of the platform?
No, it's a great question. I mean, currently, the most transparency is for our customers. So if our customer is selling a house, the new buyer of that home, if they're not working with a Reali agent, they're not going to necessarily have that same type of visibility, that transparency. Now, in the future, we would love to be able to support like all constituents in the transaction. And that could be part of our technology roadmap. But right now, we're primarily focused on our customers.
Got it. That'd be kind of cool. Like everybody can see what's going on, right? So all the stress of everybody can kind of just that visit. I mean, it's all about visibility, right? When you don't know, it makes you stressed.
That's right. That's right.
What I'm imagining with what you're describing with visibility and sort of this networking, you just mentioned a Reali agent. So I guess there's Reali financiers and whatever that else might be. How do people come into your business-wise, come into your community to work with your clients? Is this just are you doing the vetting? Is this by invitation? How are you creating this community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have two primary sources for acquiring customers. Number one is we have a marketing team, very sophisticated marketing team that does Facebook, Google, Bing ads, acquires customers, or the digital advertising. People click on something, it goes into we have an internal inside sales team who vets the leads. And then once we've found out, hey, this person is interested in our product, they have an intent to buy or sell, move, refinance in the next, let's say 60 to 90 days, then we hand that off to an agent who can then take them through the process. We also have agents who are out in the community. We have hundreds of agents who are out building relationships. And as they are finding people who, hey, you need to buy and sell at the same time and you need your equity to go from point A to point B. Okay, great. Well, we have these products that can support you. And then those agents will bring them internally and then we go through an approval process. So they'd hand them off, for example, to our loans team, who then would go qualify that person to make sure before we buy a home on your behalf, like you can actually buy it back from us.
Interesting. And is that what you're talking about when it came to bridge financing? As it is right now, you have to sell your home in order for them to complete the transaction for the new purchase. So are you suggesting that using the platform, the consumer can actually finalize the acquisition before the house is sold through this sort of bridge financing? How does that work? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me, so that person, the typical buyer who's trying to buy and sell at the exact same time, and they need the equity so currently their options are not they don't have very good options. Number one, they could try to buy and do a contingent offer where it's, hey, I'm going to buy this new home, and you tell the buyer or the seller of your new home, hey, I'll buy your home once I sell my old home, and that it clears escrow. In a market like this, that offer is dead on arrival. If I get 10 offers and one of them is, oh yeah, like I have to sell my house first and I'll get the money in 60 to 90 days, maybe if your old home sells. So that's just not even an option, essentially. You could also sell your house and move into some temporary situation, your mother-in-law's basement, who knows? There's all these different places, but move yourself into storage. You could try to get a bridge loan. Bridge loans are very expensive, 10 to 12% sometimes. And a lot of people don't qualify. They can't cover two payments at the same time. So our situation is different. So since we have an internal mortgage team in-house, we also have debt financing from Wall Street, hundreds of millions of dollars to actually buy and sell homes. The way we do it is you come to us and say, hey, I have this existing house and I want to move to this new one. So our loans team will come assess your creditworthiness based on your assets, your income, and the equity in your existing home. What is your purchase power? How much you can afford? So we'll say, okay, all right, you can afford, based on all of those things, $1.1 million, which would be a starter home if you're lucky, at least in the Bay Area. So we would then
all
go
of California.
Exactly. So we then say, okay, your purchase power is $1.1 million. You go find the house that you want. So then you go and find the house with your agent and say, okay, here's the house. And we'll make an offer. We'll put in this offer. So Reali will then come in and say, okay, we're going to buy the home on your behalf. We will front the money, all $1.1 million, and we pay in cash and can close on average between like 5 to 10 days. So first and foremost, and so your likelihood of winning that home is much higher now than if you were doing your own financed offer, because number one, we're coming in all cash, which is a much stronger offer. And we come in faster. So these cash offers on average close at 209% higher, or win at 200% higher compared to a traditional financed offer. So we're already helping you win your dream home. So you move out of your old home into your new home and you live in there and you start renting it from us. But you don't have to pay rent now, you pay it later after you. So you move out of your old home, we prep your home, get it ready, and we sell it for you. But we're acting as the listing agent to sell it. And we will, and typically when a home is staged and it's unoccupied, it sells for 1 to 5% higher than list price. So we're getting premium value for your old home, your asset. Once that home closes escrow and that equity that was trapped, whatever, the $500,000 that you needed for the down payment on the first one, once it's unlocked, then the home where you're already living in, you buy it back from us. And you can leverage our Reali loans team, our Reali escrow team, our title team to make this a very seamless process. So it's it's basically flipping the home buying process on its head and moving in the order that you want to move. And like, you're not rushed. Like when you're closing the new house, you're not worried about like the dates and if it slips one day because you're already living in the house. So I don't know if you've ever been in the situation where it's like, I've got to close tomorrow because the moving truck is coming on Saturday. And it's like, right. So like, you don't have that same type of experience. So it just completely changes the stress or eliminates like a lot of the stress of this transaction.
But I mean, I love that it also gives you better buying power. I mean, there's a lot of consumers who end up losing out to investors who purchase homes, builders who purchase home would then flip them, and they do all cash transactions. It's very difficult to compete with that. So basically, if you use Reali, what I'm hearing is to buy a new home and you want to sell your home, you guys will basically act like that investor or like that builder who could buy the house cash, move into it, and then once the transaction's completed on the sale of the house, you then the consumer buy the house from Reali. So you're fronting the whole process for the consumer to get into their new dream home without the stresses of having to coordinate all these different things to happen all at the same time. I mean, why would anyone not do it this way? What's the holdback for people?
Yeah, sounds too good to be true, Tyler. What's the small print?
So honestly, the small print is most people just don't know. They really just, this is a new product. It's a new product category. Like we launched these services about 2 years ago, and we've been investing to educate the market. But it's tough because on average, the average home buyer only buys a home every 8 to 10 years. So it's not like you're just going through these transactions all the time. It takes time for us to educate the market, educate the consumer that there's a better way of buying and selling a home. And once people find out about this, I mean, a few years, and part of actually why I joined Reali is when I was going through my home buying experience and buying and selling, I had a crazy stressful experience. And we did a red back, and that's maybe kind of what you're referring to. Like I bought we sold our old home and did a rent back for 60 days. So in 60 days, the clock was ticking. I had to find a house, get an offer, get it accepted, go through the mortgage and close so I could schedule that. Otherwise, I'm going to have to get out and like move all of my stuff into storage. So the house I'm currently in, I actually believe I overpaid by about 4 or 5% because I had 1 week left in my window to actually close the house.
Like,
so it was like, like we were touring.
Nothing like
houses.
having the gotcha feeling going on.
Oh yeah, no, it was crazy. So the ability to apply like new forms of financing, as well as like this technology to provide the transparency, the whole process is just fundamentally changing the experience. So yes, it's not too good to be true. It just help us get the word out. And that's part of the reason why I'm here.
Cool. So let's take it back to the technology. How is the tech actively playing a role? Like what are you utilizing? What does your platform look like? What's the tech like?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I think let me start with like the base layer, and then how do we work up? So ultimately, one thing that we're like the value of what we provide is that integration of everything, that one-stop shop. If you go to certain places like, for instance, Zillow or Redfin, they're best in class discovery. Nobody's going to beat them in discovery. They've spent 15 years building an amazing discovery engine to find the home. But once you get into a transaction, it's like you get in a time machine and go 30 years backwards, and you're basically going through the same like archaic, paper-based, fragmented approach with most of the industry. So for us, the way we're trying to do this is make that transaction more seamless, and it starts by creating that single view of the customer. So we have a customer data platform, which is built on Segment, which captures across all elements of the journey, from when we capture you as a lead, to filling out your loan application, to interacting with an agent, to working with our escrow team. We're capturing all these like transaction, all these different data points on the transaction and where and how you are interacting with us, which gives us that 360-degree view of the customer. And then we, on top of that, so our Segment is integrated with best-in-class platform tools for each person in that process. So as an example, there's a tool called Encompass. And Encompass is a best-in-class tool for loan officers and processors. We don't want to reinvent how to like process a loan. Or we use for our agents a platform called KV Core, which enables them to nurture their prospects and whatnot. Or Qualia for escrow. How do you manage the escrow process? So all of these have open APIs. They integrate into Segment and Salesforce to provide that 360-degree view of the customer. So going back to my example previously, if you're an agent and your customer says, hey, what's the status of the loan? In the old world, the traditional world, they say, I don't know, go talk to your loan officer. Well, here, they can actually look into their CRM and say, what's the status of the loan? Oh, it was just submitted to underwriting yesterday, and you should hear back on the approval in 24 hours. So that's instantaneous. We can give that to you automatically. And that's just something that historically is available. So that's one example. I'm happy to give more examples.
No, it's super smart. It's super smart of not looking at your business model and finding what's going to work for you to solve the problem that you're wanting to solve without having to start at zero. I love it. Very smart.
Great. So much we've learned so far. What an amazing solutions you've created. I mean, this is something that's not only needed, but it gives you a competitive advantage as a consumer.
Absolutely.
It's like anyone who's looking to sell their home and buy a new home, you got to check out Reali. I mean, it just makes sense, honestly, from what we're learning so far. Let's talk about a little bit as we're coming up on time. Let's talk a little bit about the company itself, the day in the life at Reali. What's that like? Of course, you're looking for new clients and more agents and more brokers, etc. But what makes it all work is great employees. And why would people want to be part of the organization? What's interesting about Reali that you're very proud of that you'd like to share to those who might be listening who are like, I don't want to go work for those guys?
Sure. No, thanks for that question. So ultimately, I would say we're a mission-driven company, and that's the foundation upon which we built our company. Ultimately, I've been fortunate to be able to buy a home, and not every single person has been able to do that. So one of our mission is really consumers focused, as I mentioned earlier, is to delight the homeowner at every stage of their lives, to help people win their dream home. That's the American dream. So how do we help? And so we have people who are coming to our company who are passionate about that mission. We also have very strong values. The way in which we operate and make decisions, and that's something that we live by every single day. When we make a decision, we reference one of those values. So people come here, they're aligned with what our overall company objective is, and also aligned on how we make decisions, and all ultimately leading back to making this a better consumer experience. So we have a very family-friendly culture. It's a high-performance culture, but it's also a family-friendly culture. And it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of is just going over the last several years, going through the trials and tribulations of COVID and just like the craziness of that. We've been able to build a fantastic team where people just have this sense of belonging and a sense of purpose.
That's amazing. So this journey, you went from the big consulting firm, you had a few tour of duties and some up and coming technology companies. How would you compare those with starting or being in a disruptive organization or a company like this? What's anything that's different that you want to highlight, that perhaps lessons learned that you could share with some others who are watching who might be on the fence about making that kind of transition, going from a consultant to a practitioner to actually building a business and managing a business? Any thoughts? Any words of wisdom?
No, it's a great question. And hey, how long do we have? I could speak for that about an hour for hours, but
about a minute.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, ultimately, I think it's about impact, and that so starting at a consulting firm, I worked with Fortune 10 companies on their growth strategy, but ultimately, which was fascinating, great experience for me and also helpful for them. But as a practitioner, you create a slide presentation, you'd hand it off and then come back 6 to 12 months later and say, hey, how'd it go? And for me, I wanted to see the impact. So then you go into a bigger company and you can start to have impact in a bigger company, and from going from consulting to a bigger company. But still, it's hard to move a big ship. As an example, I worked after LinkedIn was acquired by Microsoft. I was working in a startup within LinkedIn, and or a brand new business line. If that business line had 10x the revenue in the year over our plan, I don't think we would have moved Microsoft's stock price by one penny. Just because Microsoft is this multi-billion-dollar company, and I was in a startup within LinkedIn, and so then ultimately going to a smaller company, I feel like what I do can have impact on overall the overall trajectory of the company. So not to say it's not wherever you are in that journey, it's great. It's the smaller you go, my belief is the more impact you can have on the overall trajectory of the company.
I agree. That resonates a lot. Well, Tyler, it's been great to have you as our guest. We wish you a lot of success. We'll definitely have to keep up to see how you're progressing along. And just stay with us as we go off the air in just a minute. Kim, what do we got coming up for the rest of the week? We have one more show tomorrow, I think.
We sure do. One more show. That will be tomorrow with Lawrence Cook, who is the founder and CEO at NanoPay. The topic for tomorrow's show is new customers, a fierce competition between large and small banks. So kind of in line with how Tyler left us off today. All right, cool. So don't miss it. Tomorrow, Dojo Live, 12 o'clock Pacific. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tulio.
See you soon, guys.